about them Irish?
I can't take it anymore. I need a national championship.
This is the Four Horsemen podcast.
I'm in a library. And we are back.
That should not be cut out. That bit there should stay.
All right. And we are back. That laughter was brought to you by Steve, podcasting from a library, because apparently one of us had to be homeless for an episode. This is the Four Horsemen podcast. We are your three favorite horsemen, and you are the fourth, the listener. Today, we are going to deliver some takes so sweet they'll deliver you or give you tooth decay. And Dylan, in the all industrious manner that he is, has decided that we have moved to Skype. So hopefully our audio levels are better, and we will have some colloquialisms that will be better as well. And so Dylan, being industrious as he is, figured out that we could use Skype. So we're going to do it. Really, before we begin, any updates, you guys? I hope you're all doing well from the last time we spoke.
Well, it's funny you say someone has to be homeless because next episode I'll be the homeless one. Looking for a place to live. Just
What's
get ready.
the rent like up in Canada?
Depends, I guess. Not too bad. One bedroom, something like 1,500 Canadian. So about 200,000 American.
Oh my.
Or no, wait, that'd be the other way around. It'd be like $4 American. If I wanted to exaggerate currency exchange.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not that great at numbers despite handling people's retirements for them, but even I knew that was a little shoddy on the numbers.
I know. The joke here is that our dollar's a lot less than yours.
So, we will get into the season, our predictions, the playoff, pretty much everything about football, which is why people listen. But Dylan, before I really get started, I have a question. What side of the road do you drive on in Canada?
I should be annoyed at that, but I think it's actually a fair question given our British roots. But we do drive on the right side of the road, like most normal people. Good
to know. Okay, I'm just wondering that. I was driving home today thinking about you. That's kind of cool. So, the season's right upon us. Preseason has started. The captains have been elected, and we are ready and raring to go to beat the Louisville Cardinals and go 1-0. So, what we're going to do today, everyone listening, we're going to do a quick little preview of the team. We're going to hit some game-by-game previews. We're going to do a playoff scenario, and we're going to do some predictions. But before we begin, we'd be remiss to talk about what's going on in college football right now. Two things. Tate Martell did not get the starting quarterback job, and the Horseman podcast curse is 1-0. Thank you, Tathan. And the second thing, and I want your opinions on this, Dabo Swinney has refused to give a ring to his quarterback who left 4 games into the season. Kelly Bryant left after Game 4 and now is playing at Missouri, who consequently won't be able to go to a bowl this year for some violations. But I want your guys' opinion. What do you think about this move by Dabo? Does Kelly deserve a ring or what not?
Dabo's a crazy person, so that's pretty much it. I don't know why you wouldn't give it to him. I mean, he won you 4 games. I don't know, Steve. You seem to be shaking your head.
Yeah, no. He left. He wasn't run out of town. He said, I got bested by a true freshman. And I don't know, is it, I guess, technically preserving a year of eligibility?
Yes.
Okay, so then he played his 4 games, then he was able to redshirt, preserve a year of eligibility. Now he's in Missouri. Feels very much so like you kind of just quit on your team. And it's like at the end of the day, buddy, like you weren't that great. Good enough to obviously be a starter at a major program, but obviously we know who the real X factor was. So he got run out of town by someone younger and better, and yeah, he gave up on his guys. So if you're gonna quit on your team, there's no reason for them to honor you. And that's my view out of it. So I'm perfectly fine with the way it played out, but what does my opinion matter?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Some Notre Dame reporters don't agree with me. If I quit my job now, I'm not calling my boss up in December asking for a holiday bonus. So if I left, I'm not expecting anything of that, and people are all up in arms. But that's just society now. And now with how college football is, with the neo-colonialism of these players going from one program to another, it's absolutely ridiculous to assume that this player needs something that he didn't earn. So that's where we're at with that. But now that's all I want to talk about. Again, Horseman Pod. Curse is 1-0. So enough about every other team that doesn't matter. Let's talk about the one team that does matter. So Dylan, let's start with you. Give us some stats about this team right now, and I'll chime in when needed.
I have none. I don't know if the stats from last year are going to carry too much.
I meant more so the players that are going to be on the team, not actual stats.
Oh, I think we got a pretty good group. I feel pretty confident going into this year. I think we're probably as good as last year. We're going to find that out as the season goes on, as we always do, right? You always forget, or you always don't know how good you are at the start of the year. I think it's going to start with Khalid Kareem and Julian Okawara. Our two edge rushers are both high draft prospects. They're both really highly regarded at the edge position. So you're going to get pressure on the quarterback. The secondary is returning, 5 key players, everyone but Julian Love, right? So we got Aloy Gilman, of course, a pod favorite. Jalen Elliott, who's murdered 3 people last year and is going to go for a few more. And Troy Pride Jr., apparently Dante Vaughn's had a good camp. Sean Crawford, in his 9th year, might finally actually play a game. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
I think he has more functional kneecaps than he's played games at Notre Dame.
Sean Crawford?
It's a joke because he blows out a kneecap like every 11 seconds.
Well, he was a highly recruited player too. We were all kind of amped for, and he's got 2 injuries.
Oh no, he is the real deal. If he can stay healthy as the nickel guy, I mean, that would make a massive difference.
Yeah, and Houston Griffith too, right? Kind of covering at safety and corner. So I think the secondary group's going to be really, really good. The question, of course, is linebacker. We don't really have much returning talent there other than Bilal. I don't know if they still have him at the Rover, if they're going to move him over.
No, he moved to Buck.
Buck, right. So I know this Jack Lamb kid's supposed to be really good, true freshman or redshirt freshman. We'll see. I think the defense is – I like that scheme that, of course, Elko put in before he left, and I think that alone is going to help us along with the talent we have. On the flip side of the ball, I mean, Chip Long is maybe a top 5, top 10 offensive coordinator in the game. Super creative. Can get tight ends into the game, running backs, all sorts of things. And when you bring back a quarterback like Ian Book, you got to really like the Irish this year. I mean, that's the most important position. You're bringing back not just a good quarterback, an elite quarterback. The wide receiver group is the most talented we've seen in a while. The offensive line's returning 4 starters. I don't know why anyone's pessimistic. I don't know why a certain team that starts with an M is getting a lot of hype and not us. That we're returning more talent.
Charlie Weiss.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, NFL kind of coach who hasn't won anything at college. But yeah, no, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I want to know your guys' thoughts on our tight end, Cole Kmet, getting hurt. Is that going to affect the team? What do you think?
Steve?
We're pretty deep, thankfully. So now his replacement, so he the injury itself, a broken collarbone, which I'm a one-time survivor of. So, I mean.
Could have been you. Yeah,
it could have been me. But if I could do it, and if I could come back to the podcast game, then he can definitely get back onto the field. He's just got to show a little grit. But in all seriousness, so it's about 3 to 6 weeks. And we are 3 weeks away from the start of the season. So on the high end, he's going to be missing, 3, potentially 4 games. I don't think it's going to go out that far. The first game, what do we have? Louisville.
Louisville
Yeah.
by New Mexico.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's looking promising that hopefully he'll be able to play 10 regular season games, possibly more. He might even be back for New Mexico, but at that point, don't even rush it. So Cole Kmet out. But, I mean, we have like so many high recruits over the past couple years. It literally is tight end you. So, we should be fine. I don't think that's going to be that impactful. I think if it was something to do with like his back and he was going to be out all season, then maybe you're looking at depth issues. As you get into games against like Michigan, Stanford, obviously Georgia. But I think if he can, he should be back before the Georgia game, and I think that that's the most important thing. So I'm not too pessimistic on this one.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. And the tight end in that offense, he might have the most sure hands on the team. But we have Claypool back, and he's ready for a breakout season. Fink is a captain, so you have receivers that Book can throw to. And I would have to check the all 22 on this, but I don't think he relied on his tight end too much last year. There were some throws, but if you're playing Division I football, it's not like they pull someone out of Dillon Hall to play tight end for them. They have caliber tight ends who have played games before. I'm more interested to see the development of the freshmen. I have 2 on in particular my eye on: Harrison Leonard, the kicker, and also kickers are people too. And Kyle Hamilton, the safety, in his first practice at the media could see he had 3 interceptions on Phil Jerkovic, 2 off of tip passes. So with that, he's a ball hawk, and I think he could work his way up into that rotation. I know they're trying to rotate safeties, so we don't have a Gilman situation like last year. But really, I'm interested in those 2. I think overall, you have Jafar Armstrong coming back. I was high on him last year. Then you have Ian Book. So there's no cause for concern. Everyone's saying, "Oh, they're not going to be good." They went to the Pinstripe Bowl the year after they went 12-0. It's not going to happen. And we'll get to my season prediction, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah, fair stuff.
Yeah. And I'm not sure. I mean, I know we're kind of doing a roster breakdown right now. I'm not sure how far we want to get into this. So I'll tell you 2 areas where I'm optimistic, and then 2 areas where I'm feeling a little bit more pessimistic. And 1 second, my thing is bugging out. Okay, we're good. So where I'm most optimistic, is both areas are between the trenches. Offensive line, defensive line. I mean, Ian Book obviously struggled under pressure in the in the bowl game against Clemson, and that was abundantly apparent. Word is that Ian Book last year actually won the starting job in camp, but Wimbush started nonetheless against Michigan because Wimbush was better at facing pressure, and they were concerned about the pass rush. That was kind of something that was floated out there. So with such an experienced offensive line, and a lot of these guys have been very highly recruited for a while now, and we have a lot of depth on the offensive line, that's comforting to know. And then on the defensive line, we know that we legitimately have a top 5 defensive line, maybe top 10 on the low end defensive line in the nation. So that's promising. You win football games between the trenches, because if you gotta win ugly, that's the way to do it. Now, where I'm a little bit pessimistic would be, honestly, and I know this is crazy to think, would be Ian Book. And I think he's a phenomenal quarterback. Dylan, you described him as elite. I definitely think he is. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in college. There's definitely the argument for that. Where I'm concerned, one, is he going to mature and become the field general that we know that he should be able to, make pre-snap adjustments to quell the blitz, so that way he can adjust to the pressure and make the right play. And then also, we know that he's incredibly accurate, but that's usually on passes of 15 yards or less. Can he stretch the field? We have Braden Lenzy coming out of camp, he's a redshirt freshman. This kid has got blazing speed, and there's like a lot of hype about Lenzy. Even Lawrence Keys, who's more of a shifty slot guy. But we feels like we're starting to get like some faster guys on the edge. At receiver. Is he going to be able to stretch the field and make those 30, 40-yard throws that will hopefully, keep those safeties back, so that way there's going to be, less pressure, less opportunities for, interceptions. So that's where I'm a little bit pessimistic. That and the running back position. Tony Jones is solid. Jafar Armstrong, I think, is good. It's just concerning that, we're at the level we are as a program and we don't have somebody great to take over for Dexter Williams. So those would be the only two areas of concern. And even still, I think we're still in a good spot.
Yeah, no, it's pretty much agree with a lot of that there. Pete, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, just to go off the captains, they were announced for the year: Book, Elliott Gilman, Fink, Kareem Aquara, and Robert Hainsey. So it's interesting, if you see that breakdown, you have 4 defensive guys and 3 offensive guys. So we definitely know where the bulk of the talent is. So you definitely have that piece right there. And then just the other thing, I'm trying to put this into right words. You have Komet getting injured, and with the individuals stepping up, you have Brock Wright, and then also Tommy Trimble, and then there's George Takas, take it, whatever his Greek last name is.
George Takas.
Yeah, that one. I can't pronounce names. So you have tight ends, and I would like to see a 2 tight end set out there just to establish the power run. But if we only can go 1 tight end and then just spread the field, that'll work well against the teams we have to hit. So that's just kind of a random spot that I have there. I'm really glad that you see Fink with the C on his chest this year, especially Gilman as well, Jalen Elliott. There's some guys that everyone else can look up to. So that's where I'm at for that piece.
So,
and we did have a couple transfers, so Dylan, I'm not sure if you have anything on that.
No, I don't. I was just going to say, should we move on to some game predictions?
Just one thing about transfers. I'm not going to say his name because he's no longer an Irish player, so we don't have to talk about him. But if anyone transfers after preseason camp because he feels like he's not going to get playing time, he's a mentally weak individual, and I don't want him on my team. Go Irish. Let's move on.
And screw all the schools in Atlanta, Georgia.
Especially the yellow and black ones. All right. Next up, we have
the schedule.
And Dylan, I'm going to let you get the captain's chair here. You're also going to need by one of these "Make Notre Dame Great Again" hats. We're all wearing them.
Yeah, looks very great.
Yeah, hand stitched.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Well, the schedule is pretty tough this year. Even looking at some of the kind of games you expect to win, they're not really that easy. At least not based on the teams last year. So we're going to start September 2nd, which I believe is Labor Day.
It is. Do you have Labor Day up there?
We do. Yes. So
I will have U. Labor.
U. Yep. The way things are spelt. Absolutely. And we're going to be playing Louisville.
8 p.m. game. Bullshit.
In Louisville, though.
Louisville.
That's interesting. I didn't think that was a road game.
So, clap. Pause. We are pausing the podcast. Do we want to go game, win, loss, or just quick thoughts?
Quick thoughts on the game, and then we could give we could do at the end, like with predictions, right? Like
I don't think we should go game by game prediction because that would take too long. Just overall. Okay. All right. And we are back on. Go.
All right. So Louisville away, September 2nd. Brian Van Gorder defense. Is he still there?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we should win by about what, 90?
I'm feeling 90. I don't think Louisville's that good. I
don't think they'll be as bad though. Is another thing.
They're not good. I don't think that there's anything that we have to be worried about.
I mean, what were they, 2-9 last year?
They weren't good. I don't have a record for them because they're irrelevant. But they're wearing those black jerseys, so I'm worried that it's going to be one of those jersey hype-up games. I don't think anyone goes to school there anyway. So with that, everyone's going to be there. It's going to be a Miami-like environment for all 50 fans that are in attendance.
Yeah, are you... I know we shouldn't be worried at all, but are you worried, first game of the season, the lights, road game, kind of feeling like Texas maybe, where you might not be ready for it?
No. You have Ian Book. You don't have any freshmen playing that we know of right now. So I'm personally not worried. You have players who played in the college football semifinal last year. It's Louisville. Steve?
Fair.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it's an ACC game on the schedule. So, yeah, I really don't know. There's not much to say about it. I mean, if we lose, I know I exaggerate a lot, or I say this a lot, but I'll probably kill myself.
Classic. All right, so then we move to week 2, big bye week. Not sure if we're going to win that one.
I hate that.
Well, we got to get ready for the mighty New Mexico, whatever the team name is called.
Wolfpack.
Lobos.
I was gonna say armadillos.
They're the Lobos. Lobos means wolf.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Interesting. So New Mexico is another interesting one. It is a game that we should win. It's our first home game of the season.
Big independent matchup too.
Pardon?
Big independence matchup. Big in conference game there.
New Mexico or Independent? I thought they were Mountain West.
Oh, no, it says Independent here. At least last year they were.
Nah, they're Mountain West, homie. And Bob Davies the head coach.
I'm on the Wikipedia page for 2018. It said Conference Independent. Maybe they moved.
Well, regardless, Bob Davies the head coach. So we have 2 former Notre Dame coaches back to back. That's pretty interesting. Dylan wasn't probably alive during the Bob Davie era, but that's a thing. He preceded Tyrone Willingham. Do you know him?
Of course, I know my history.
All right, good. It's another win. Go 3.
If I wasn't watching it, yeah. So yeah, they're 3-9 last year. That should be a real easy win there. So then we get to the big game, the one probably worth talking a little bit about, and that's going to be Georgia and Athens. Night game. We kicked off. Who was it? Was it Alabama LSU that we bumped?
Yep. First time that they're back to the afternoon game since 2012.
Because it seems to me Alabama LSU plays later in the year, but whatever. Fuck those 2 schools.
Hard agree.
And they probably want to fuck their sisters. Anyway.
Cousins, let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
Fair.
I do not co-sign.
Anyway, speaking of cousin fucking, Georgia going down south. You guys worried about that game?
Steve?
I mean, he'd be insane not to be. I mean, we all know the story. What was it, 20-19, 2 years ago, on our home turf, and an embarrassing amount of the crowd was wearing red in Notre Dame Stadium. So let's hope we can get some revenge here. Little Irish invasion, take the South, and let's hope this is the best Northern campaign since General William Tecumseh Sherman.
I would like to go on the record right now. I am not worried.
I mean, they're obviously, one thing I do want to say is that they've lost a lot of talent to either people getting kicked off the team or transfers this year. But obviously they're an elite program. They're a top 5 team. We know that they're going to be highly efficient on offense, even though they have like new wide receivers. They're all the wide receivers that are going to be playing are former 5-star recruits. So they're going to be crazy talented. Will Dante Vaughn stand up for 4 quarters against Eli? Oh, Jesus Christ, we're fucked.
Now I'm a little worried. Not really.
Give us your reasoning.
Why am I not worried? Hold on. Let me get my reasoning. Dylan, talk a little bit, and I'll get my reasoning.
I have a funny thought. What if we go in Athens and beat them, and then Georgia turns around and has like a 7-5 season?
That'd be
Wouldn't that be
interesting.
so Notre Dame
Well,
to get a big win on the road, and it turns out the team fucking sucks?
this is why I'm not worried. Vanderbilt, Murray State, Arkansas State are the 3 games before Notre Dame. So, let's think about that. Vanderbilt, SEC, they show up. Murray State, OVC, Ohio Valley Conference. Arkansas State, Sun Belt West. They're not playing teams. They're playing glorified high school teams with the exception of Vanderbilt.
As opposed to Mexico State, right?
Correct. Let me continue my point here. So, they'll have 3 games, we'll have 2. Yes, these players are going to get a little bit better, but at the same time, you have a 7:30 start at Vanderbilt, a 4 p.m. start against Murray State, and a 12 p.m. start against Arkansas State. First night game of the season. It is their 3rd home game of the season, so we don't have to worry about first home game anything. It's a trap game for them because then they get into the bulk of their SEC schedule right after Notre Dame. And I know it sounds weird saying Notre Dame's a trap game, but when you think about it, they want to win the SEC. So that's the big thing there. So that
they can afford to, right? Like if you're an SEC team looking to get in the college playoff, you can lose to Notre Dame. You know, it's easier than losing to Florida or LSU in terms of getting into that conference championship game. So, yeah, I think you bring up a fair point there. I think one matchup Notre Dame could really try to exploit is, apparently, Georgia's front 7. I think word in Georgia's they're not too confident about it this year.
They're definitely decimated because they have lost so much talent to the draft, but they are not nearly on the level they have been the last 2 years.
So my thinking there is the offensive line Notre Dame's returning is going to be a top 5 group in college football. And on top of that, you're going to have Ian Book, who's A, really good at getting the ball out of his hand quick, and B, is a really good quarterback. So I'm looking at that favorably for us. I think we could establish the run. I think we could keep the quarterback pressure free. And if that's the case, Georgia's going to be stuck on the field, and Notre Dame's going to be scoring some points. And I know our defense is good. They have a good quarterback too. Don't get me wrong, but I think that
Jake Fromm, he shows up. Then let him roll out. That's all I'm going to say. Let him roll out, and let's see what our safeties can come up and do.
Yeah, that's a game I actually don't feel too bad about. And if we lose it, that I hate losing, but that's not one that I think breaks our back like it was 2 years ago. Like when we lost to Georgia at home, by the time the playoff committee started coming out, we were right on the door of the top 4. You know what I mean? It didn't affect our playoff hopes at all. So it's an early season game on the road. If you lose it tight, it'll suck, but the season's not over. And I think it's one we can win. We're a returning college football playoff team. Georgia's that quality too. Didn't Georgia get beat in the Sugar Bowl, Texas or something?
Yes, they did.
Yep.
So, I see Georgia's getting a lot of hype. I think Irish might be a little underrated this year. So unless we have anything else to say, we'll move on. To UVA at home. The Cavaliers, who have not beaten Virginia Tech, I think, in like 70 years or something. It's an exaggeration.
People forget there is that meme that exists on the internet, and the last time Notre Dame and Virginia played was when Deshaun Kaiser launched an absolute piss missile into the corner of the end zone with like 30 seconds left. And you just see the life literally leave one of their fans. So if we could repeat that performance, but make it a little bit less dramatic, but still steal their soul, I'm perfectly content with that.
Pretty sad that one of the biggest moments in Notre Dame's recent football history is beating University of Virginia week 2 on the road.
In a come-from-behind win.
Yes.
With a backup quarterback.
Too. I remember probably dancing around whichever apartment I was living in at the time. So the Cavaliers, they went 8-5 last year, 4-4 in the ACC. I don't know too much about them. I have a UVA friend. Don't know anything really about them too much. It's at home, 3:30 kickoff. Do you guys have any thoughts or anything to contribute?
A little bit. They have a transfer from the mighty Richmond Spiders. They have. That's it.
All right. I think that's a game we probably had some points, if I'm being honest.
Now, speaking of padding points, I'm going to cut you off here, Dylan.
All
No,
right.
this isn't an advertisement, but the following week, October 5th, we play the mighty Bowling Green something or others, the Falcons. They're coming from the MAC. MAC is one of my favorite Tuesday night conferences to watch.
Action.
Yes, 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 yes. They hired the Boston College offensive coordinator as their head coach. So
They also went 3-9 and 2-6 in the MAC.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a game Notre Dame will be favored to win by probably 35, and they'll win by 4. So
Well, yeah, I was just about to say, see, I'm nervous about this one. So this exact week, I will be in Hilton Head Island that weekend on a golf trip because I golf. Not a big deal. I've had a hole in one. Have you? No, probably not. Yeah, so I probably am going to miss that game, or I'm going to have to like live stream it while I'm on the golf course. So I don't know. Maybe the juju is off. Where if I'm not watching, we're not going to win. I don't know. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to do the best I can and stream.
If needed, we will call you if we do need that piece. So then, that's Bowling Green.
I can jump in for a second.
Oh, sure.
I think our September schedule is pretty easy, guys. Looking through that and the early October schedule, there's only really one tough game. And we know if you can get through September in college football, you're kind of cooking. So I think that's favorable, even though this is a tough schedule in totality. I think that's a really favorable first month and a half. But as you were saying, going from one easy team to another, the Irish then play the Southern California Trojans October 12th.
And it's crazy to think that this is basically a trap game.
I think Bowling Green might have a better record going into the Notre Dame game than USC will. And I'm not doing that because we hate USC. It's just USC has a really tough schedule, and USC isn't good, and their head coach isn't good. And I don't know about you guys, but it seems like every time we play USC at home, we beat them by, 35.
That's also the Irish word green game. So that's the...
I wonder if they'll bring greens, and if they do, please don't have any blue with it like last year. But
it wasn't bad, Dylan.
Are you guys worried about Southern Cal? Is that a trap game? Is it really?
It's coming off a bye week, so the thing that we're forgetting to mention is that like 7 Notre Dame teams.
No, the bye weeks
that they're playing it's a bye week the week before. I am worried on that piece. I'm not worried that you're seeing Washington, Utah, BYU, and Stanford in September to give us good film on what USC has. So with that, you're looking at what they have right now, and the big thing about USC is they have people, and their secondary is being tested daily, so they're getting ready for the season, which sounds stupid because every team's getting ready for the season. But I feel like they could be a team that does better because their coach is on the hot seat this year. So I'm not sure where to go with them yet, but I am worried.
And worth noting that pretty much their marquee guy on offense, obviously, JT Daniel was very, highly touted coming out of high school, and he had a decent game against us last year, but it was mostly scripted plays because he's a pussy. But I do got to say that Amon-Ra St. Brown,
yes.
brother to Equimania St. Brown, holy shit, is that kid very talented. And again, if he's going up against Dante Vaughn, I'm not confident. Let's just put Aloy Gilman double coverage on that. That's all I'm saying.
You can even if Dante Vaughn's this year, you can put Kyle Hamilton at corner and safety is pretty. You can play the same thing there.
We also have 3 corners ahead of Dante Vaughn, just so everybody knows. It's not like Dante Vaughn's going to be our starting right corner. But
the sky has fallen.
Yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown was a huge recruiting loss for the Irish. I can't really blame him. California is really beautiful. And all 3 brothers went to different schools, right? Stanford, USC, and Notre Dame.
Correct.
Yeah, or Osiris, I think.
Yeah. They got some funky names.
Their father is into Egyptian mythology, and their last name is actually originally just Brown, but he changed it to Saint Brown because he wanted it to stick out on the back of the jersey. A little fun fact.
Interesting. So I
He's
have
also
heard.
a Mr. Olympia or Mr.
So
Universe.
one of the rare times this is ever going to happen in Notre Dame's schedule, but and this is really neat, is back to back. It's going to be USC and Michigan, our two biggest rivals. Now, I have on the schedule here from the Notre Dame website October 12th USC bye week, and then October 26th at Ann Arbor, which is thank God if that's true, because that means we get the bye heading into the Michigan game. And Steve's the one who's always wants to kill himself, but if we lose to Michigan, it'll be me that you got to watch out for. I absolutely hate them. I think it's the time I got into college football was right around where Notre Dame and Michigan had a lot of tight games that ended up going against us.
Let's not talk about those years.
We won't. We won't. But I hate Michigan more than anything in this world. So I'm going to let you guys have a more rational take on them before I start piling on them.
So,
I think Shea Patterson just stinks. I think he just stinks at football.
Yep. Throw away Shea. Mr.
Well,
Shea Patterson. Mr. I don't want to get hit by the defense. Shea Patterson. Shea Patterson's a Heisman contender. He's going to bring Michigan to the mountaintop. No. He is not a good quarterback. And all these people are out there saying that he's the one, he's the next incarnation of Tom fucking Brady, are all off base.
Tom Brady wasn't
Shea. He is not a good quarterback. And I'm not saying that because I hate him. I do. But he folds under pressure. And then now you have Harbaugh, skinny Charlie Weiss, having their fullback go both ways, going from playing fullback to playing three tech. That's a gimmick. All the Michigan team are a bunch of gimmicks. Go blue. We support you. That sign, I just threw my hat in there.
That's a pretty shitty sign. I'll give you that.
It's a terrible sign. Oh, we're going to run and hit it. That's a bad sign.
I hope one of them blows out their ACL.
ACL jumping up. Hey, we said the same thing, Steve. It's bullshit. The big house is bullshit. I hate everything about it, and that's my rational take. Shea Patterson, not a good quarterback. Let's go win a friggin' game.
I mean, just to get very rational about it, I mean, they lost, 7 players on their defense?
Yes.
So, I mean,
that's their strength, right?
Yeah, that's their strength. They definitely have a lot of, incoming talent, but a lot of it is unproven talent. So do I expect to struggle on the road against them? Most likely at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. The week before, Halloween. Rationally, yes, we're going to probably not play our best game, but should we win by at least a touchdown this early in the season, all things being equal, no major injuries, yes. So we'll cross the bridge when we get there, but
they have Penn State the week before at Penn State.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
So,
and usually you would say, well, we have USC the week before or the 2 weeks before, but they're going to suck this year. Mm-hmm. With Michigan, it's really funny. Ever since Harbaugh's taken over, it's kind of like they've gotten the Notre Dame treatment of being super hyped every year and having their quarterbacks put on Heisman lists. And like I have a lot of problems with Michigan. Every Notre Dame fan knows why we hate Michigan. There's a history there. I don't really know why Michigan hates Notre Dame. I have a theory, is that Michigan, of course, started off in the early 1900s, back in their heyday, as the big program that everyone tried to model themselves after. And then, of course, within a few decades, Notre Dame had just surpassed them in every area. And I think Michigan doesn't want to give away that. They don't want to admit that we're the greatest program of all time, and that's why they hate us. I don't know. If there's a Michigan fan out there, explain it.
Yeah, I mean, they hang on to their winningest program of all time, but then if you actually look at win percentage, they obviously fall off massively. So, okay, congratulations, you were a school 35 years before anyone else.
I think they're still number 2 in win percentage. Like, we're number 1, although the NCAA took that away, right? So on Wikipedia, we're not number 1, but I'm not going to bring up my issues with Wikipedia.
Dylan's been fighting the good fight from up there. He's used his VPNs. He's probably blocked from Wikipedia for all we know.
Probably. Last year I got really into it. Here's the thing with Michigan. They have really good receivers, or really talented receivers. I don't know how proven they are. Tariq Black, Peoples-Jones maybe is his name.
Donovan, yeah.
And another guy. So that'll be something to watch out for, but apparently they're trying to revolutionize their offensive play calling, which of course was their biggest problem last year. If they do, maybe something to be worried about. But Michigan's going to play a really Nice faces you guys are making there. For people at home, they're doing the blowjob face because fuck Michigan. Um,
No, I just don't think you can revolutionize an offense anymore. It's fucking 2019. Everything that has been done's been done. Jim
Well,
Harbaugh isn't a mad scientist. He's a goddamn mediocre coach.
I think he means getting a better play calling system going on, but really,
I
they're
said
going to
what I
play
said.
an nitty-gritty game, run the ball a lot. Probably going to be a low-scoring game. I can't see this really turning into a shootout, but I really anticipate that's going to be a fun one. Michigan's best crowds at the Big House are always against Notre Dame. It's not Ohio State that brings in the highest attendance. It's Notre Dame. So that'll be a fun one. We'll do a little more coverage on that week, talk about how much we hate them. And then that's a game that could make or break the season. So moving on. Virginia Tech, VT. What do you guys think?
They'll show up. At least we won't have to see their ticky-tack entrance anymore. Bud Foster's gone. No, not Bud Foster. Beamer. Beamer's gone. Frank Beamer's gone. Whatever. They're white guys. They all look alike. So with that, it's Vatek. They're coming in. They're a scary team coming off of Michigan. So we'll see. That's what I can say about them. We'll see.
Yeah, that's really the only concern here. Is I don't think it's the substance or the quality of Michigan of Virginia Tech rather. I think it's more so our guys are going to be getting up and kind of going all out for the week before. Are we going to be healthy? Are they going to be able to albeit at home control your emotions and focus and bear down and just win the game that you should. And, unfortunately, our program has had the problem of not winning the games you should in years past. And that's why, we are wearing Make Notre Dame Great Again hats. Because the great teams will find a way to bury a slightly above average team like Virginia Tech. So,
well, to be fair, we've been pretty great in the last few years. But yes, your point's taken. We need to bury them. P?
I have a thought that we haven't brought up. November 2nd, the day after All Saints Day. The day before that is Halloween. Traditionally, in the U.S. educational system, correct me if I'm wrong in Canada, Dylan, people get drunk on Halloween in costumes. Will there be a hangover for any player on the field that night?
Not for Notre Dame. They're not allowed to drink. Come on, guys.
Bet the under.
Yeah, Michael Floyd never had a drinking problem in college.
No. And then our other favorite player who's still suspended for fighting the Uber driver.
But guys, we're morally superior to everyone. Remember that.
Just listen. Hot tip. Bet the under. Whatever that might be.
That you could be right there. I think that's kind of a trap game. VT should be better this year. They kind of had an underwhelming season last year after starting off well against Florida State. A game I still made money on. But I think we go from one trap game to another because we move on to November 9th, and then we have Duke away. And if you guys remember, Duke was decent last year. If I recall, I think they were 8-5. Yeah, they went 3-5 in the ACC though. They did lose their quarterback to the Giants, 6th overall. I hope everybody laughs at that at home.
12 p.m. game on the ACC network.
Yeah,
that's why I'm booing.
Well, yeah, that's really annoying. It should at least be 3:30 because Duke is in North Carolina. But this is the one. Like last year, I could have pointed to the Pittsburgh game, and I would have told you we absolutely would have struggled putting away Pittsburgh, and I was basically spot on. I'm calling my shot now. The Duke game we should win by 17. The Duke game is one where we're going to win by 6, and it's not going to be pretty. But again, win ugly, win between the trenches, win ugly. As long as there's a W on the board, I think 11-1 this year, just to get a way out ahead of my skis. Puts us in still a very competitive position, depending on how the landscape shakes out. So, that's a game where I expect we're going to struggle, but listen, just put it away and you're home the next week. So.
Yes. Navy, November 16th. Traditionally, I know Dylan has an issue calling them a rival, but they are. It's a 2:30 start in Indiana, which is confusing.
Honestly, why do we play them? They hurt us every year. They play us tight. They provide nothing to the schedule, and they suck. Why do we play them?
Because, Dylan, there was this thing called World War One and World War Two,
No,
and when the Navy was
50
struggling,
years ago. Come on, guys.
yes, but no, because the Notre Dame gave their students to the Navy,
Mhm.
they have to honor that rivalry. It's why
Yes, no,
Army and
they
Navy
helped
play
us
every year.
financially during the war because we didn't have any kind of financial resources. But here's the thing: haven't we paid them back? They've been playing the top program in college football since like 1920. We went 76
game.
years in a row beating them. Come on, what's the point?
It's a
Let them play
game. We know
Air
they're going to run the triple option. It's just a game. Let them
How
play.
many
Let the
injuries?
boys play.
Fuck the boys. They're gonna get hurt playing the team. Anyway, I point taken. Let's go to another fucking team I don't like at all. It's not really a rival.
Dylan might
Boston
have
College.
an aneurysm this year.
I might.
We might
Boston
have to-
College.
Good thing Canada has free medical care. You might actually have an aneurysm. Boston College. I was at that game a couple years ago when everyone ran for 500 yards over Boston College. It was the hottest game of the year, and I got to hang out with two former Notre Dame players at a bar beforehand. It was the best. But this game,
Which
again,
players?
I'm worried. What?
Which players?
Didn't you meet Kona Schwenke?
No, Conan Schwenke. I think he passed away. Rest in peace. And if he didn't, I apologize.
He did. Rest in peace.
Yes, he did. No, it was New Jersey and Maryland. Corner and defensive tackle. And I'm blanking on their names. They played with Brady Quinn and under Charlie Weiss.
Ashik Williams?
No.
He was from New York. He was from like Brooklyn or some shit.
We'll get back to that. But Boston College, they have a really interesting schedule this year. The coach is Adazio is a great coach. I'm worried about that game because it's also senior day. So hopefully the Irish show up for that. But that's another. November is a tough November. Every game could be a trap. So that's where we're at there.
All right. Yeah, they were good last year too, if you guys remember. Played Clemson really tight. But yeah. That's not even in Chestnut Hill. That's going to be at South Bend. So, I mean, Boston College in November should frighten every Notre Dame fan. Of course, in '93, that's when they beat Lou Holtz's team after Lou Holtz beat Florida State in Game of the Century, which, by the way, Notre Dame has played in the most Game of Centuries than any other team in college football history, and they've won the most. Just in case you're doubting who the best program in college football history is. Anyway, Stanford, November 30th, Palo Alto, where the game will be half sold out. What do you guys think?
Honestly, it's the most terrifying game on the schedule.
Really?
Stanford is still rebuilding. They definitely have a lot of gaps. There's some talent gaps there that we are the superior team. We should beat them. If you're given a 6.5 point line on that, I think again, under normal circumstances, Notre Dame should cover that. They should win by at least a touchdown. But recent history in Palo Alto in November, I'm just thinking back to like Toby Gerhart running for 495,000 yards in the first half against us. Like,
well, Brian Kelly has
thinking a couple of years ago.
Do you guys know that?
What's that?
Brian Kelly's not won in Palo Alto.
Really?
Yeah. So it has not been good in the past.
And I don't know why, because Stanford's not a tough environment to play in. Again, they don't really sell out their games. It's usually probably half Irish fans there anyway. But it's just Stanford, when they play us at home, they're either really good or we're really bad, or we're both good or we're both bad, and we just never seem to win. That is one. I understand the fear. Stanford, the Pac-12 is going to be open this year, so for all we know, Stanford could end up fighting for a conference championship game there. But yeah, I don't know too much about what they're returning. I know David Shaw's an excellent coach. I always liked him. P-Wagon, you're kind of the coach guy. What do you think of him?
David Shaw, I hate him.
Why?
One, I have better hair than him. Two, I don't think he's a good coach. And 3, he has his bullshit colloquialisms out there where he tries to talk like he's a smart coach, but really he just is the coach of Stanford. The end. Jack, subscribe, like, 5 stars on iTunes. If you're at this point in the podcast, I've said all 4 words. Thank you very much. And Andrew Bake, I don't want to hear any of that Notre Dame bullshit because you have to subscribe, like, and rate 5 stars as well as we continue. So that'll be the season right there. We'll hit 12-0. And I know we're getting close to an hour on this podcast. So Dylan, hit us with the next topic while I try to figure out which Notre Dame players I drank with.
Playoff scenarios. We're obviously going to probably get through these a little quicker. College football is going to run through Notre Dame this year because we play both the Big Ten possible champion, the SEC possible champion, and then we could be playing a Pac-12 champion. So it's going to be very interesting. Like, if we go 11-1, do we get in? You know, you're unlikely to see 3 teams go 12-0 again this year. What happens if Alabama and Georgia both have 1 loss? You know, one of them beat the other. You know, do you want to win that Georgia game in case Alabama beats Georgia so you can kind of get ahead of Georgia instead of being logjam behind them, right? Because if you lose to Georgia and then Georgia loses to Alabama, Georgia, Notre Dame is now the pecking order before we even consider any other teams, and that kind of really hurts us in terms of getting into the playoffs. So maybe beating Georgia would kind of help prevent that. What about Michigan, right? Does Michigan have any kind of realistic playoff shot? I don't think so. But what would a win in Ann Arbor look like? So do you guys have any kind of thoughts there?
Yeah. I think 11-1 still puts us in the top 6. And I think Dylan, you are exactly correct. I think you have the calculus here mapped out, and you always have, a beautiful mind when it comes to this type of thing, in terms of going through scenarios and doing the mental math. I think it all depends on if we lose, who do we lose to? Is it going to be Stanford last game of the year? Is it going to be on the road against an SEC powerhouse? Or is it going to be against a Michigan team that, even if they beat us, they probably finish 11-1 at best because, again, they're just going to get the doors blown off against them against Ohio State. Yeah, I mean, I think your only loss that you can rebound from would be Georgia, and then Georgia has to beat Bama. So,
I'll put this out here because do you guys remember when we beat Michigan last year, 24-17?
I was
Very
there.
well. That's the first day I met Steve.
Yep, we were friends.
Michigan
And Joe. Wait, before we go further, Joe Polano, if you are listening, please come back.
Government name and all.
We're good. Yes. Do you remember when we beat Michigan and then 6 weeks later people are talking about putting Michigan ahead of us in the rankings? I'm sure you guys remember how awful that was.
Mm-hmm.
What about if we beat Georgia early on by a few points and we get to the end of the year and Georgia's the SEC champion, or Georgia's lost to Alabama and there's a spot between Notre Dame and Georgia? I know just by rule of thumb it should be Notre Dame if you win that head-to-head. I'm a big head-to-head guy. But that could be something to look out for too. Even if you beat Georgia, that could end up hurting you if it's 10 weeks later. Another thing is, if you told me which one of those 2 teams, and by 2 teams I mean the big 2 are playing, Georgia and Michigan, on the road, which one I would rather lose to if I had to, it'd be Georgia, obviously, because I'd never want to lose to Michigan. But I think it would be better for our playoff hopes if we lost to Michigan, if we had to lose, because having that win over Georgia kind of gives us that little nudge over the SEC. And I don't think Michigan wins the Big Ten. I think Michigan loses to at least one of Penn State, Michigan State, and then probably one of the other Big Ten teams who are sneaky good this year, and then Ohio State. So I would rather almost have that win over Georgia and a strong loss to Michigan. Do you guys have any preference there if you had to pick one in that god-awful scenario?
Yes. I would rather lose to Georgia over Michigan because a loss to Georgia means they're at that level where they can beat Alabama, they can beat LSU, they can beat Auburn, they can run the SEC. So a loss to eventual SEC champs Georgia puts us in a better spot than a loss to a middling Michigan team.
That's a fair point.
Yeah. No, I guess I know this is sacrilegious, but yeah, I think I'd rather a loss to Michigan, just because outside of Ohio State, I think the Big Ten is fledgling right now. I don't think Wisconsin has enough juice to be relevant. Um, so it's I think Penn State is still a step behind. Obviously, they're kind of rebounding from their um, situation. So yeah, I think that the Big Ten is really only it's only Michigan and Ohio State basically. I guess Michigan State might be something, but I just again I don't think they're all the way where they need to be yet to be considered a top contender. So I'd rather lose to Michigan, knowing that the odds are that they're at the very least going 11-1, and maybe they shock the world and go 12-0 and actually beat Ohio State for the first time in like a million years.
It's interesting. We have the same opinion, but for different reasons. Like you think Michigan's gonna go 11-1 or 12-0, and I think it's because they're gonna go 9-3. But I think it's a very interesting thing, and of course we can't pick, ahead of time. We can't know that. That's not the way the world works. We go into them 1 week at a time, and I wouldn't want to lose any of them. Now, here's a question for you guys: if we beat Georgia week 3,
when
are we looking at like almost an automatic bid at that point, assuming we finish 11-1, or are we like automatically talked about in the top 1 or 2?
Beat Georgia in consideration, because the media is going to have a bias against it. Something happened that day. Kirby Smart's dog didn't poop before the game, something like that. But 11-1, we're on the bubble, depending on who wins the conference titles. We get in over a Big Ten champ of Northwestern. Hard to say if we do that against Ohio State. Notre Dame moves the needle, so whatever happens there in consideration, it's good for ratings. It's good for the sport.
Yep, and that's at the end of the day is college football's Notre Dame. Whether you like us or hate us, everything runs through us. We play all the Power 5 programs, or usually within the span of a few years. So we have a lot of data points against a lot of teams. We play a lot of potential conference winners. We play ratings, and we can spoil a lot of things for a lot of conferences. So you can hate us as much as you want, but the fact of the matter is Notre Dame is relevant as they ever have been. And a lot of the season is going to come down to what happens in those key Notre Dame games. So I think that'll move into our last segment here. Do you have any predictions?
Really, really quickly, do we see a Big 12 champion getting into the Final Four?
No.
No, not this year. I don't think Jalen Hurts is good enough for Oklahoma, and I don't think Texas is back.
Not a chance in hell.
So TCU. That's the team to watch out for there.
Yeah, okay. What about the Pac-12?
Yeah.
No.
So,
Washington?
The Pac-12 champion is going to be 9-3.
Yeah. And the Pac-12 champion would go, even if they went, 11-1 in the Pac-12, they'd go 8-5 in the SEC West, right? Like, people are going to look at that.
Yeah. And first off, sneaky Pac-12 champion this year, Utah. Yeah. Secondly, I think Utah, or anyone in the Pac-12 or the Big 12, I don't think they would make it in over a 12-win Notre Dame team, or possibly even an 11-win Notre Dame team. I think we got enough of a resume, assuming that we beat, at the very least, if we beat, if we're at 11 wins, that means we've beat either Michigan or Georgia. So I think that would give us the resume over those two this year weakened conferences. So
I think we can kind of peg a spot for Clemson, peg a spot for the SEC winner, and then the last 2 spots will go between
Big Ten.
Notre Dame, Georgia, and then the Big Ten winner. That's the way I think it is.
That's SEC should only get 1 team, and that's my opinion.
But if Alabama and Georgia, both go 12-1 and 11-1, depending on how that Notre Dame Georgia game went, those final 2 spots and plus the Big Ten winner. So really, if you're a college football fan, cheer against the Big Ten this year. Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State. Cheer against them in every game, as you would normally. Same thing with the Pac-12 and the Big 12. Cheer for everyone to lose, but watch out for Ohio State. If Ohio State can have 2 losses and win the Big Ten's out. So,
Agreed.
what do you guys think this year?
I'll go first. 14-0, national champion. Call me in January.
Wow, very pessimistic.
Hope springs eternal. I can't get onto this podcast in the summertime. I can't get up for a September 2nd matchup against some bum ass Kentucky ass team. I can't buy a Make Notre Dame Great Again hat if I don't truly believe that this is the year. Every single year is the year until it's not. 14-0, national champion. You got to believe.
Wow, Steve was just the most optimistic I've ever heard him in my life. That's amazing. Now, I think there's this bar set by Lou Holtz, that if you're in the media and you're a Notre Dame fan, you have to say 12-0 every year. You can't, within your conscious, pick against them.
Are we in the media technically now?
We're kind of in the media.
We're
in
getting press
alternative
passes.
media.
We definitely need press passes if we ever go to a game.
Absolutely. We'll get my good friend Chase Claypool to get us some access to that.
Ooh, a little interview, on the spot interview.
I bet we could do it, honestly. Let's reach out to him on Twitter.
I know Golich.
Yeah. So here's the thing. There's the 2 big games, the 2 big road games, Georgia, Michigan, where we'll have probably like a 40% chance to win both, or something similar like that. But, even if we're like 80% to win the rest of the games, it doesn't mean we necessarily do. So I think a lot of rational people will look at our schedule and say 10-2, and they split Georgia, Michigan, and then they drop a game to either Stanford or Virginia Tech, which I think is fair. I think that's rational. I think 11-1 is more likely because I like us at home against those teams. But ultimately, this isn't a fan podcast if I don't sit here and tell you guys we're going 12-0. We're going to win the national championship this year. And that's where I have to stand. That's just my obligation. I think this is going to be a great year. I think our floor is about 9-3. If we get really unlucky, 8-4, I think our ceiling is all the way to the title game. This is a good team. We can win those games. Georgia is beatable. Michigan is beatable. We have no good luck in Ann Arbor, but maybe that'll change. Palo Alto, same thing. Mm-hmm. So I think 11-1 is very likely. I'm going to go 12-0 like you guys, of course. But I'd like to hear what the viewers think. Hit us up on Twitter, 4 Horsemen Pod, and let us know what you think.
I have some breaking news here. Actually, no, this gets me into legal trouble if I break news. We are not breaking news. I'll tell you off podcast. Yes, follow us on Twitter. We are learning our rules about breaking news here. I'm getting better at it this season. 4 Horsemen Pod, at PWagon60, at DillyDilly97, and at Steve Campy. And the players I hung out with were Victor Abriamiri.
That's what I said.
No, you said Connor Schwenke, but that's okay.
Same person.
And I forgot the other one. He was unforgettable. But
Carlo
they really like
Calabrese.
Guinness. No, I wish. He was the best. My people will get
stallion.
you. Yeah, he was a fun cat. But next week and throughout the season, be sure to tweet us. We may have guests on. We may have some people who want to hang out with us and talk football. Bennett Jackson was the other one. So really, if you have any questions for us, we're open. Dylan's DMs are open to complain to him about the audio quality of this podcast. Mine are for compliments only, and just tell Steve that you like him. So other than that, we will catch you next week, and
we're gonna do the Louisville preview a week early, just because P-Wagon's got some important things to do. And we appreciate your feedback, guys. Let us know. Talk to us, engage with us. We had one guy engage with us a few weeks ago, and we thought it was fantastic. So hit us up. We like it.
Go Irish.
Make Notre Dame great again.
Beat Michigan.